Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court. Oh my gosh, he's falling over. Dude, that's a kid, right? Or they're both kids. Constable Roy Peter, sir. Nothing to report on the street, sir. Oh, that's Rolly. Okay. Oh no, he's falling asleep. Poor him.
And I'm Mrs. Beat. Patricia's my name. I'm proud to say I'm this young town Sarah's wife.
What's the story here?
Well, in truth, we've not been married long. In fact, we celebrated our first anniversary only the other day.
Oh my gosh. He's so dead. Why is he so dead? No, it was your husband I was asking about. He seems tired. Hardly surprising. Whilst being an honourable occupation, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world. Oh, really? I'm sure I've heard that before, actually. Indeed, apart from a rare days off, our gallant officers shred some 20 miles a day, you know. They patrol boarding houses and pubs, collect taxes, survey the streets, and check that meters are reading true. And they're responsible for keeping the streets clean and lighting and extinguishing our street lights. There are a number of items on that list that don't sound much like policing duties at all. I wouldn't just be falling asleep on my feet. I had collapsed long ago. Yeah, the way they were talking about, they literally work all freaking day. That's crazy. But it goes without saying that the policeman's primary duty is the apprehension of criminals. Even when he's off duty, a constable is expected to investigate and resolve any crimes on his beat. The London Bobby is a man of honor. Oh my gosh. I feel so bad for him. And a man of slumber. On the day in question, this man and his wife were walking down Briar Road in the opposite direction, and they witnessed the incident as it occurred. Is that not correct, Mr. and Mrs. Beat?
That's right, sir. Isn't it, Rolly?
Oh my gosh.
Constable Roy Beat, sir. Nothing to report in the streets, sir.
What a great witness he's going to be. Very good. I'd like to hear your formal testimonies now, please. You will tell the court exactly what you saw on the afternoon of the incident.
Yes, sir.
Oh my gosh. He's so tired. What the witnesses saw.
It was our wedding anniversary and Rolly was taking me out for a meal. There was no time to change after work. Anyway, the two silhouettes appeared out of the fog in the pavement in front of us. All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor. Then the other scattered something before running off. We ran straight over the course, and then we went for help at the nearby police box. It was definitely that Japanese man at the dock. Rolly and I both saw him clear as day.
Well, this is extremely compelling testimony, I must say.
Oh dear, this policeman and his wife are claiming to have positively identified Mr. Nesmith at the scene. If the testimony is true, the alternative course of events that you established in the summation examination will be squashed.
It's death. It's death knell, in fact. Because that alternative was never viable in the first place. What an unfortunate bit of chancing. And on your wedding anniversary, too.
Oh, I know. But I still managed to go out for the evening with my man. I thank the Lord for that.
Gosh, the life of London Bobby sounds very hard indeed. Indeed, however. This cross-examination will be over in a minute. You may well have time to rest this afternoon. What do you mean by that? My learned friend, the witnesses saw the face of a man fleeing the scene. They are testifying under oath that it was without doubt the accused, Mr. Soseki Natsume. And one of these witnesses is a policeman, no less, so you appreciate the gravity of the situation, I'm sure. Except the man's so tired his wife has to do all the talking. Enough preamble. Counsel for the defense, commence the cross-examination, please. Yes, my lord. What the witnesses saw. No time to change after work, you say? Are you also a member of the police, Mrs. Beat?
Oh no, sadly not. It's not for strapping young men only. Women and children and the elderly can't even apply.
Well, I think you can possibly see why children and the elderly can't do the job, can you?
I think Rolly looks ever so handsome in his uniform. It suits you down to the ground, doesn't it, darling?
What? I just finished my beat. Pat and I were heading back to the station, and I was actually planning on getting changed there. Is he talking in his sleep? This is creepy.
Oh no, Rolly. I much prefer you in uniform. Sometimes, I don't recognize you when I see you in plain clothes.
Oh dear, that doesn't seem healthy. Poor dude. Kinda adhere to the point. You were going for a meal after you had finished your beat for the day, correct?
That's right, sir, yes.
Although I was fit to drop, to be honest, after spending the whole day on my feet. But policing is my life, sir. As long as I'm a proud owner of this, I serve my duty and my queen to the end. What's that now? My warrant card, sir. Proof that I'm a London copper. As the noble founding principles of the force written on it. As a reminder to all of us policemen for our sworn duty to patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of common man. Sir, for such a noble cause, I cover 20 miles every day without failure and without a grumble. Because I know the plodding of my boots is all Londoners need to hear to feel safe and secure. So, fighting crime doesn't appear to come to it then.
But sir, just on that particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. When Mrs. B puts up with a lot being married to a bobby like me, I want to show my dear wife how much I care. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. Oh, what a charming couple. Their young love is such a joy to behold.
If a little over the top, perhaps. And then, kindly describe what happened next. Two silhouettes?
That's right. And they were coming towards us, walking up Briar Road in the opposite direction.
Oh, two figures. There we go.
There was a rather plump figure followed by a scrawny, thin-looking man.
That doesn't sound exactly like the victim pictured in this print, and like Mr. Natsume. Yes, unfortunately it does. You know certain that at the time, there was nobody else nearby.
Oh yes, quite certain. It was dark, but there are streetlights on Briar Road, you see. There's nobody else around at all. Isn't that right, my darling?
Well, yes, that's right. Of course, there was a light fog on the ground. But Briar Road is dead straight, and you can see a fairly long way down on the pavement. And then there's the street lighting as well. I didn't see any other pedestrian... Before sleep takes a firm hold, your answer please, Mr. Beat. Or you're quite sure of what you've just said. Yes, sir. As a couple who spends all day and every day watching on the street, I swear to it, sir. I'm as sure as my love for Patricia is true. Oh, Pat.
Oh, Rolly.
They're still maintaining there was no one else around, other than the victim and the attacker. It's starting to seem like that must be how it really happened.
It's beginning to seem like there's nowhere to run.
Well, that didn't stop Mr. Natsume, didn't he? He fled the scene all too convincingly. Thank you. I believe we have a reasonably clear idea of the situation just before the incident now. What happened in the crucial moments that followed. What's this one? Scattered something? What do you mean by that?
Oh, well, I couldn't quite make out what it was at the time. But then when we got closer, we realized what it was. Didn't we, darling?
What? Oh, yes, that's right. It was some old books. I see, old books.
Yes, sir. The culprit had dropped a number of them, around where the victim lay on the pavement.
Indeed, as clearly pictured in this photographic print. The Russian Japanese man did that when he did that.
The rotten Japanese man did that when he did the deed.
Let's not forget that it remains to be established that the defendant was indeed the attacker. But we saw him. It was the man in the dock, without question, sir. The mustache, the hunchback, the cat-like eyes, the top, the mouth, the snub nose, everything. Any more insults you want to throw in?
That's right. He looked down at that poor, defenseless woman with those terrifying, intense eyes. And then suddenly threw his books onto the pavement and ran away.
I see. This is tough. They seem as though they're telling the truth here. May I remind the court that this unambiguous testimony comes from the policeman and his wife. Now please, continue.
Yes, sir.
Oh my gosh. He's gonna fall over and bonk his head. Was it your husband who went to fetch help?
No, I went. I may not be a police officer myself, but I am proud. I'm the proud wife of one after all. Isn't that right, my darling?
What? Yes, that's right. I asked Mrs. Beat to go. I was off duty by that point. But a Bobby's never truly off duty, of course, so I felt obliged to stay and guard the scene. Very laudable, Mr. Beat. Preserving the scene of a crime is a task of considerable importance. That's why I sent Patricia, you see. I told her where to find the right police box. Forgive my ignorance, but what do you mean exactly by the right police box? It depends on the crime's location, you see, as to who deals with it. Where the woman was stabbed wasn't actually on my beat. So I told Patricia the way to the police box for the beat. The incident fell under so she could go, report it.
I ran there as quickly as I could and asked for help from the Bobby on duty. There was nothing more potent than a young couple in love working together, you know.
Thanks to your swift response, the case was quickly resolved. The actions of two model citizens.
Oh, please, you're making us blush, isn't he, darling?
Yes, sir. Well, Patricia said, sir. Let's move on, shall we? But surely you wouldn't have been able to see his face by the light of the gas street lamps, would you?
You absolutely could. Us Londoners have exceptional eyesight, I'll have you know.
poor Rolly. Right.
The light from the street lamps was more than enough. My husband already told you that the fog was only light, didn't he?
Yes, and what of the fog? We're famous for it across the globe, I believe. But it's an absolute menace to those of us who have to live with it, of course.
Oh, it is. When it's thick, you can't even see the hand at the end of your own arm.
Yes, alright, I take your point. Now, could you stop shaking your husband about?
The constant fog makes our eyes very sharp, you see. That's why we can tell you for sure, and certain that it was the little Japanese man we saw. Can't we, darling?
Yes, it was the accused, and no mistake. The mustache, the hunchback, the cat-like eyes, the tall mountain, the snob. Unmistakable, sir. As far as this couple's testimony is concerned, there can't be any question. It was just like the sound they saw running away from the scene of the crime. So that's it, is it? That's their entire testimony?
What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo?
Well, I hate to admit it, but on hearing the testimony, it really does seem as though Mr. and Mrs. B saw what they say they saw. Mr. Natsume running away from the scene on Briar Road that day. Yes, I feel the same. So if that's true, where does it leave us? The members of the jury are sure to call for a guilty verdict after this testimony. Oh no, then what do we do? If Kazuma-sama were here, what are you trying to say? I think he would try to find a contradiction somewhere else in their testimony. What do you mean somewhere else? Their statement about seeing Mr. Natsume is unequivocal. Calling that into question won't help. But if you could identify some other part of their testimony which appears to contradict the facts, you might be able to discredit them, to make the jury doubt if their paired testimony of the day is accurate. Oh, right. Put it simply, we must focus on finding a discrepancy in the statement somewhere. If you don't, I'm afraid the trial may reach an early and unfavorable conclusion. Ugh. Why do I always seem to be so up against it?
Mr. Lawyer, sir, can I ask you something?
Oh, yes, of course. What is it?
Well, you keep asking us all these questions about everything we told you, so... It seems like you don't believe our testimony. Is that right, is it? Well, out with it.
What? No. Oh, no, it's really not that at all.
My husband's a policeman, remember? And I know what I saw. I remember every last detail, everything, like... Oh, I know. What about the books the man dropped? I could tell you the names of every single one, I could. Every single one. And you dare to question how reliable my testimony is?
That will do, Mrs. B.
No, it won't do at all. That Japanese lawyer has no idea what I'm capable of. Even if I decide to forgive him for insulting us, I don't for a minute that Rolly will.
I really didn't mean to cause offense. Please, put your husband's fist down. But perhaps you would like the opportunity to supplement your testimony, Mrs. Beat. Might that appease you?
Oh, thank you, my lord. That would settle things nicely. Wouldn't it, darling? I can even tell you the names of the 4 books he dropped at the scene.
Yes, we know that there were books dropped at the scene of the crime, as you say. Those purchased by the accused at the nearby second-hand bookshop on the day in question.
After I'd been to the police box for help, I decided to have a good look over the area for good measure. I am a proud policeman's wife, after all. I did it for Rolly.
And what was your husband doing at the time?
Oh, he was lying face down in the snow, getting some well-deserved rest. He works ever so hard, you know. Ever so hard, don't you, my darling?
Interesting way of guarding the scene of the crime. Well, Mrs. Beat, seeing as you've regaled the court with your tales of powers of recollection, would you be so kind as to recount the titles of the books you observed at the scene?
I'd be happy to. Now, are you all listening? There was the picture of Monsieur somebody or other, and what's it, yearnings. And there was, a meal for someone, and the last one was definitely the thingamy something. You see?
Yes, I see there are 1 or 2 holes in your memory.
Oh well, they were along those lines, I'm quite sure.
There were indeed books found at the scene with the titles along those lines, as you put it.
Well, what did I tell you? So I think it's very mean, the way you've been implying that my testimony can't be trusted. Did you agree, darling?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Anyone who accepts my Patricia will have me to answer to. Oh my gosh. He just whipped out his gun. That's scary. Terrifying. Yes, she really is. Okay. So, I mean, in the photo, we only see 3 books, so that's probably what we can, object to. Four books. So as we can see in here, there's only 3. So, you were saying that there were 4 books?
That's right. I remember all of them. The picture of Monsieur somebody, what's it, yearnings, a meal for someone, and the thingamy something.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Beat. But there is a fundamental flaw in that statement of yours.
What flaw?
Simply that, at the scene of the crime, there were only 3 books, not 4.
What?
Have a good look at this photographed print of the scene of the crime. As you can clearly see, there are only 3 books.
But, no, that can't be. I saw them. Oh, I know what it is. Yes, you can't fool me.
Sorry?
It's that big lump of a dead body. The lady so large, her corpse is blocking the view of the 4th book, that's all.
Let's at least remember that the poor woman isn't dead, even if we're insulting her size. No, I'm sorry, Mrs. Beat. But Mr. Natsume could not have possibly dropped the fourth books you described.
Why not?
Fascinating. And from your assured tone, something you can readily substantiate with evidence, I presume. Ah, evidence. Counsel, you'll present evidence to substantiate your claim or withdraw it. What proof do you have that the accused did not drop 4 books? The receipt. There's only 3 books listed. The evidence is right here, in form of this bookshop receipt. From your books. Yes, this receipt details Mr. Natsume's purchases that day. But as you can see, only 3 books are listed.
No.
Therefore, Mr. Natsume would have only dropped 3 books at the scene of the crime. Which means that your powers of observation, madam, cannot be relied upon.
Huh?
So it cannot be denied that though you say it was the defendant you saw, you could very well be mistaken.
Oh no! Oh no, oh no, oh no!
It's plainly evident. It is your powers of deduction that cannot be relied upon, my learned Nipponese friend. What? cannot be denied is that these two witnesses saw the accused running from the scene. The fact that you know very well that you have no hope of disproving. No. So, you've striven to avert your attention by the dint of some inconsequential discrepancies. Would that be fair? But he sees right through me. But your plan has somewhat recoiled against you. What are you talking about? It's quite simple. Let me explain with a toast. To the policeman's wife and her entirely accurate testimony, in every respect.
Oh.
You see, the matter is not up for debate. At the scene on Briar Road, a total of 4 books were most definitely found.
But what about the photographic print? It only shows 3 books.
Quite right. Only 3 can be seen in that print.
That print?
You mean to say... Allow me to present another. One that shows the victim's hand.
I don't believe it. It's the 4th book.
As you will observe, the 4th book was hidden from view in the original print by the victim's torso.
No. No!
Order! Order!
There, you see? Look at that. Look.
Yes?
It's just like I said, isn't it, my darling? Yes, sir. Purchase is always right, sir.
Let us study the receipt for the books purchased by the accused on the day in question. Mrs. Beat, the titles once again, if you please.
Oh, yes, of course. The picture of Monsieur somebody or other.
The picture of Monsieur Le Who.
What's it, yearnings?
Canterbury Yearnings.
A meal for someone.
A meal for, Gaboro, in fact. As the court has just heard, the witness remembers books titles flawlessly, save for a few minor details. Mrs. Beat's powers of recollection can only be described as exceptional.
Did you hear that, Rolly? The gentleman paid me a compliment. Yes, sir. Flawless, sir. Picture is flawless. But there are only 3 books on the receipt, and Miss Beat mentioned 4.
There's nothing surprising about that. Clearly the 4th book is that which is shown in this photographic print. I'm sorry, counsel, but does that not seem odd? Why should the 4th book be omitted from the receipt? It's not odd at all, my lord. As the photograph clearly shows, the 4th book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, it belongs to the victim. The victim was holding her own book.
I wonder, what became of that 4th book?
Obviously, it wasn't overlooked by the investigating officers at Scotland Yard. I have it here as evidence. You will submit that at the aforementioned photographic print to the court, please, counsel. My pleasure, my lord. Crime scene photograph number 2. A second photograph of the scene taken by a policeman just after the incident. It specifically shows the victim's hand. The 4th book, a book titled The Lion's Pride, The Lion's Pride, discovered in the victim's hand at the scene. Prosecution rests. That's a book that was burned. No wonder the book looked weird in the photograph. Okay, let's take a quick look. See, as you can see, like, this edge part, it's, like, kind of burnt off, right? And that was the favorite book of, the landlord dude. Hold on. Okay, just checking to see if there are any other details that we might have, wanted to see. The Lion's Pride.
Let me see. It's a book titled The Lion's Pride. I'm afraid I don't know any English literature at all. So it wouldn't be something I've heard... Wait a minute. The Lion's Pride? That's strange. I think I've heard a book by that name before, and very recently too. It's a title I've recognized too, Mr. Naruhodo. Okay, let's examine this part. Yeah, the burnt part. Oh, look at this. This book has been badly burnt. You're right, I'd never be able to read it in this state, especially not the latter pages. What a terrible waste. Judging from the scorched edges of the paper, I think the damage must have occurred very recently. A book damaged by fire. Why does this seem to raise a red flag at me? A book entitled Lion's Pride discovered in the victim's hand. The back cover is badly burnt. Okay, so we added the new information.
wonder if there's anything else we can observe. Can we open this at all? Probably not. Probably no need to, right? Okay, there's nothing else that we can glean from there. I have nothing further to add. What? You seem surprised, my learned friend. But your resistance until now has been in vain. Entertaining, yes, but futile. The spurious longer route to the accused lodgings that you tried to establish in Shalmation examination, and the attempted discrediting of the witness's powers of recollection in your cross-examination. Futile? I walked right into this, didn't I?
You see, everything we said is true. Isn't that right, my darling? Yes, Pat. Marry me, Pat.
So, perhaps the ladies and gentlemen of the jury would like to reconsider their positions. Should the court waste any more time on this Nipponese travesty? Or is the decision you have to make all too apparent already? You have heard all the witnesses and seen all the evidence. This trial has run its course.
Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid we're in a terribly precarious position.
I know, but if I fight back in the wrong way now, I could very well just make matters worse.
Think, Ryunosuke, think. What do you do now?
Oh my gosh, what do we do? Hold on. For all witnesses and seen all the evidence. Well, I guess we just have to wait for a summation examination, right? We don't have anything new here. I should just keep quiet for now and see what happens. Well, it appears the defense has no objection at this juncture, in which case...
Mr. Naruhodo, was I not clear? The case for the defense is in great danger.
Yes, I realize that, which is why I decided to let the sweat drip from my trembling brow in silence. You're so right. Sorry. If I don't say anything now, it'll be all over. And it won't end well for us. I can't let that happen. Okay. So I guess we were supposed to say something. No, wait! The defense... The defense will have to wait. Despite that sapless hesitation. Because that sapless hesitation cannot go unpunished. Oh, darn it. Isn't your derisive finger-pointing punishment enough? Ouch. No, my learned friend. It is over. The last cross-examination was your final chance to establish a credible defense, and you failed. The die has been cast. There's no more room for debate. Well, it might be over as far as you're concerned, but... I can't think of what to say.
If I may, Lord Van Zieks, it seems somewhat boorish to close down the debate at this point.
Your insignificant little Eastern Isle must be a lawless hole indeed. From a lowly judicial system to have the audacity to intervene at a moment like this.
Oh.
I am, to my shame, still a very inexperienced lawyer. So you'll have to forgive me, but consider my assistance and advice essential and your opinions invaluable.
Mr. Naruhodo.
One of this land's great building principles is tolerance. So, the court will hear you, madam. Go ahead, Mr. Sato, please. Very well. Pray, what insight can you give us? What have you all overlooked in this matter that you see fit to pursue further?
Well, the court has been presented with new evidence, but only after the last cross-examination finished.
I see. And you believe that this new evidence warrants further examination, do you?
Mr. Naruhodo, what do you think? It's just possible that this new evidence might be the decisive proof we've been waiting for. The judge is sure to ask the members of the jury to announce their leanings in a moment. And of course, he's sure to ask you to explain what the crucial piece of evidence is and why. So we must take this opportunity to examine the newly presented evidence as thoroughly as possible.
Yes, I understand. And thank you, Mr. Sato. This is it. Susato-san has managed us to win us one last chance here. I can't let it go to waste. The defense wishes to present evidence, my lord. Very well. The defense may present one further piece of evidence. Evidence that apparently offers a profound insight into this case, and has hitherto been overlooked. It's burnt. Oh, frick. No! I think I, Oh, okay. We are still talking about the book, I think. We've already discussed the fourth book at length. Okay, we'll just read it from the beginning. The evidence in question is what we see from the newly presented photographic print of the crime scene. The fourth book found in the victim's hand. Other than that, it being in the victim's grasp at the time of the incident, no significance has been attached to it. Pursuing the matter further would be a flagrant waste of the court's time, as you well know. Yes, I'm afraid, counsel, I must concur with the prosecution in this matter. When I afforded you this opportunity, you led the court to believe that the evidence in question contained a hitherto undiscovered clue. So I must insist that you elaborate, counsel. You identified this clue at once. Do I make myself clear? Oh, yes, my lord. It's not although. I believe the prosecution is trying to avoid a thorough examination of the evidence, which means you may very well be on the right track. Yes, I think you might be right. So, counsel, precisely, where's the vital clue to this case, which this fourth book conceals? Okay, so what I'm thinking is that, she got the book from the house, right? And if she's walking down and she already had the book, then she was walking away from the house, which means that if they came across each other, Soseki and the victim, they would be facing each other, right? Instead of them both going the same way. I wish I could pull out the map right now to point it out specifically, but because of where she was coming from, which was the apartments, she must have been walking up the street, not down the street, while Soseki was walking down the street back to the apartment. I would ask a court to observe the back of the book in question. The back? What do you... Good gracious. It's been burnt to a crisp. So we have to ask ourselves, why was the victim clutching what is clearly an unreadable book? Is undeniably an extremely unnatural thing for her to have been doing. Unnatural, you say? And what of it, my Nipponese friend? Oh. Were I to concede the point of it bears no relation to the case, there's nothing to discuss. So, should you wish to assert that this fire damage is some veiled clue as to what happened that day? Pray, do enlighten us all. What truth does this charred book hide? A charred book? There's just one possibility here, which I can't quite bring myself to rule out. It's an outside chance, certainly, but worth a try. Alright, I'll explain my theory. Don't keep us waiting any longer then, counsel. Explain this theory of yours. What are you suggesting that you can ascertain from the fire damage this sorry tome has suffered? The shop that sold it, its owner, its content. You can ascertain from the fire damage that the sorry tome has suffered. What are you suggesting that you can ascertain from the fire damage? Oh, I guess it's owner, right? My lord, the burn back on the book reveals a startling truth about the book's owner. I beg your pardon?
But we already know who the book belongs to. The victim was gripping it in her hand as she fell to the floor after all. It's obviously hers.
The question of how this book came to be in the victim's hand has yet to be answered. However, as to the questions of who the book really belongs to and where it originated, the defense has very credible answers. Good gracious, how can you possibly? Very well, I'll play along with this futile attempt to delay your inevitable demise. But do remember, the members of the jury may well burn you if your little gamble goes awry. Counsel, the defense's response here is very likely to influence the final outcome of this trial. So tell the court, who do you claim is the owner of this burnt book? Okay. So we know that that's Garadib who owns the book. The answer is that the book belongs to the couple who own the house where the defendant has its lodgings. And a certain Mr. and Mrs. Garadib, the landlords. And whether this is some extraordinary coincidence or some kind of fate at work, I don't know, but of all the people in London, one of the 6 chosen for jury duty in this courtroom today is none other than Mrs. Garrideb herself.
Oh my goodness, me? Oh, I think you must be mistaken, sir. I'm not Mr. Garrideb's wife. I'm his maid.
Things would be so much easier if you just dropped the pretense. Alright then, how about a simple question for you? Have you seen this book in Mr. Garrideb's house?
Why, I would never presume to know all of the books he keeps, sir.
This is outlandish behavior. This woman is the accused landlady, you say? You implicate this hardworking member of the public. You besmirch her without a shred of evidence. Your actions are unforgivable. This is not a mere conjecture. The defense happens to know that on the day in question, at almost exactly the same time, the victim was stabbed on the pavement below. Another incident was taking place in the room on the top floor of Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb's house. Good lord. What sort of incident, counsel? A fire, my lord. A fire, my lord. Afraid to say it was. Happened in the blink of an eye, you know. The whole place was filled with smoke. Couldn't see a bally thing. Didn't take long for the fire to spread, of course. The bally furniture started going up as well. Worst of it is I lost my favourite book called The Lion's Pride. The Lion's Pride. By Jove, the very same title that's the subject of this debate.
Oh dear me.
This is reasonable. All you've told the court is that the book by the same name was involved in the fire. In which case, it would be reasonable to assume that it was burnt to ashes. And entirely unreasonable to infer that it magically removed itself to the scene of the crime. Perhaps it would make more sense if I told you that the cause of the fire was marital discord. Without it going into details, it appears that Miss Garrideb was considerably enraged. Apparently, she continued to attack Mr. Garrideb even amid the flames.
Oh, how awful. I can't imagine being so hard to the one you love, can you, Broly?
Oops.
Absolutely not, sir. My Patricia would never raise a finger against me, sir.
Had all my favourite old novels in that case, but as soon as the fire got a hold of them, that was it, whoosh, up in smoke. And the wife started hurling things at me. There was I, back up against the window under heavy enemy fire, incendiary books coming 10 to the dozen. The man had his back up against the window, and he had burning books thrown at him. Goodness gracious, are you suggesting that the book was thrown through the window and landed coincidentally at the scene of the crime? No, a thorough investigation of the surrounding area was conducted at the very evening of the incident. There is no report of the Garrideb's window pane being broken. That's quite true, and we saw no sign of broken glass when we visited the Garrideb household. But it is not conceivable that the window was open at the time, and not even remotely. Let us not forget that the season, and the chilling weather that accompanies it. No Londoner would have ever left the window open in the middle of winter. Does the defense postulate in the scenario in all seriousness, counsel? Do you earnestly claim that the book found at the scene was the flaming projectile thrown by the Mr. Garrideb's wife? I believe it is a possibility, my lord. I mean, it could have just smashed through the window, right? That's quite enough.
That's quite enough. Well, I hope that everyone can see for what you are now, you little foreign trickster. You call yourself loyal, but you're just a coward, a mean coward.
Really?
Claiming that our little tiff was at the whole neighborhood of light, honestly. Implying that I'm merely posing as a maid for the appearance's sake. How could you? There's nothing to do with this beastly case, not any of it. All you've done is sully our family's name.
No, I assure you that was never my intention.
Dragging an upsetting citizen's name through the mud simply to divert attention from your failing defense. I should box your ears, that's what I should do. It's utterly unforgivable.
Too right. Here we go. How long have we sat here now listening to this Nipponese spouting out his fancy foreign theories? But think about it. At the end of the day, the only person who could possibly have stabbed the victim is that little hunchback with mustache, and he ran away from the scene too.
I do declare you're right.
It's true.
Yes, what did I tell you?
Makes sense to me. Sorry. What was that? Well, It would appear that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury are once again in full agreement. What is your position, Lord Van Zieks? In truth, my lord, I feel that these have been unnecessary, protracted proceedings. But then, one must always exercise patience in order to save the best vintage. No, wait! The mystery of the fourth book still hasn't been... If books are your predilection, my learned friend, study them on your own time. What? No, forgive the security this time. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will now state your individual decision regarding the defendant's culpability for the court to hear. Uh-oh.
有罪
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 有罪有罪
Oh no. Ah. Thank you for that unambiguous response. That's twice now. It's over.
Mr. Naruto, don't give up.
Miss Susato?
Have you forgotten? The battle isn't over yet.
You're not suggesting.
Of course. The defense has the right to another summation examination at this point. We could still convince the jurors to change their minds. You have one more chance.
My lord, the defense asks to exercise its right to a summation examination. You believe you still have tricks up your sleeve. I don't intend to trick anybody. I intend to uncover the truth. This is no time to be downcast. As long as there's a chance, I have to stay strong and determined. To be continued. Okie doke. Continue. I've considered the defense's counsel request for further summation examination of the jury. I have determined that the court must uphold the defense's judicial right to this procedure. So, counsel, you will now proceed with your second summation examination. And I presume the jury is ready, Mr. Foreman. We are, my lord. Very good. In that case, I must ask each of you now to state clearly and concisely for the court the grounds on which you find the defendant guilty of this crime. The juror's contentions. The accused left behind evidence at the scene, didn't he? Those 3 books of his.
If there was no alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed, I might reconsider.
Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it?
Dearie me, it was only a little book. Hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit.
Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some paint tonight, I'll be in a tiny bit of trouble. Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the sneezes. Yes, considerably more tangible arguments from all the members of the jury this time around, it seems. With one notable exception, of course. My learned student friend was unable to find fault in the previous witness testimony. So the court must accept the fact that it was indeed the accused seen fleeing from the scene. Then moreover, no one else was even at the scene to commit the crime. Well, if eyewitnesses are correct, it would seem as if the conclusion is somewhat set in stone. I fail to see how it can be argued any other way.
That means, I'm afraid, that during the summation examination, it's essential that you establish some other tangible explanation for the facts.
But how? What would even constitute a tangible explanation here? Isn't it obvious? Who stabbed the woman and how? Those 2 details are all you need to provide. Simply give us a name and a method by which the attack was conducted. And there I was thinking this might be hard.
But Mr. Naruto, you have to do it, otherwise this really will be where the trial ends.
No pressure then. That's quite enough preamble. Proceed with the summation examination, please. I presume you are prepared, counsel. Oh, yes, my lord. Alright, Yunosuke, focus your mind now. Clearly, the key to the summation examination is going to be the juror number 4, the maid. Or should I say, Miss Garridev.
We have a book that disappeared from the Garridev's house on the evening of the incident, and the 4th book found in the victim's hand.
There must be a way to link the two. Yes, that's what we have to find. Using every technique I've learned in my short career so far, whatever it takes.
Don't forget to keep an eye on Mrs. Garridev and how she reacts, even to the things other people say.
Defense's rebuttal. But as we know, there are 4 books, not 3. Well, what difference does it make? Can I go around? No, I can't. I have to click left. There's every possibility that the 4th book is in fact belongs to the defendant's landlord. Yes, that's the part I have a problem with. Sorry? Well, at the point that the woman was at, this landlord fellow was at home, wasn't he? Enjoying a fiery scrap with his wife or something, you said? That's not exactly how I put it, no. Well, anyway, the point is, the fellow and his wife were somewhere else when it happened.
I think that's what you call a strong alibi.
So it couldn't have been the landlord who did it, but leaves only the Nipponese fellow. Honestly, I can't see what all this palaver's about. It's a done deal, isn't it? I suppose it is, since I have nothing witty left to say. So, you might be willing to change your decision, you mean?
Oh my, such a delight on your face, but I'm afraid I can't be swayed by emotion. Despite what you may think of me, I'm a very modern, metropolitan, and rational woman.
That's great.
If one reads morning papers, it's all forgotten by tea time, isn't it? So I read them in the first place. You see? Modern, metropolitan, and rational thinking, wouldn't you say?
And not at all extreme.
As I see it, an overwhelmingly suspicious Japanese man has been implicated by an overwhelmingly strong testimony. So despite 1 or 2 minor puzzlements, I do declare that the man is overwhelmingly guilty. Modern, metropolitan, and rational logic, wouldn't you say?
Overwhelmingly.
But as modern girls are always delighted to embrace new fads, you know. So I'd be only too happy to consider an exciting new theory if you could come up with one.
I'd be happy to do that too, if only I could. Let's do our very best not to disappoint the modern and metropolitan young lady. Right. I'm glad you omitted rational there. What about the possibility that the window was open?
What about it? I mean, there's just no way it could have been.
How can you be so sure?
The prosecution fellow over there said it earlier, didn't he? Winter's in London on a no joke. You don't want to invite that sort of cold indoors. So no, that window wasn't open. Us Londoners like sitting by the fire and staying warm, see. But you could categorically say that the window wasn't open, could you? It just wasn't. They wouldn't have opened it. Then what's the point of even having windows, huh?
Counsel, you'll kindly refrain from childish bickering. Oh, sorry. Somehow I need to show that there's undeniable possibility that the window was open. Because this young man isn't going to budge otherwise. But the little book was on fire at the time, was it not?
With flames of love, I'll have you know.
And really no such thing as a loving incendiary bomb.
Well, he brought it upon himself. It's plagued with fire to betray a fiery love, isn't it? Well, don't you agree?
Well, any kind of betrayal is certainly a bad thing, yes. But I think the argument might have arisen out of your misunderstanding, Miss Garridev.
Never mind you that. The point is, we were just having a trivial little dispute. Nothing more. And I won't have any more of these suggestions that it was anything whatsoever to do with this crime.
Right, well, we'll see about that. What about juror number 5? He doesn't seem to be turning a hair at Mrs. Garridev's relentless onslaughts. It's almost as though he's used to it. What a gentle soul he is. Haha. You just want to get this over with? How can you sit there and say something like that? A man's future is at stake here. Well, you may both then, like I said before. What? I told you already, I'm a day labourer, aren't I? If I don't bring home some readies with me tonight, you'll find me floating face down in the Thames tomorrow morning. What? You heard me. My missus isn't one to mess about, you know. She can be a fierce, believe you me. Another shining example of marital bliss, then. A situation like this cropped up the other day. Well, it was, Do you know, it's funny, but I can't quite remember. Sorry? It was too frightening, that's the thing. I must block it out. Helpful. I wonder if Mr. B will ever be dragged into the flames by his scarf. Don't even go there, Mr. Sato. There must be some way to jog his memory about his. Does that have anything to do with your decision about the defendant's culpability in this case? Sorry? What was that? You'll have to speak up, lad. Could you tell us more about that fire? It was last winter. My grandchildren baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. It had 75 candles on the top, it did. What a sight to behold it was. You put candles on a cake? Oh, was it some kind of devil worship? Of course not. It was an angel cake to celebrate my birthday, obviously. It seems that there's a common custom here in Great Britain, Mr. Naruhodo. Anyway, I mustered all my puff to blow them out. I only must have blown wrong somehow. The flames didn't go out, but the candles went flying all over the room. The furniture caught and everything went up. The whole place filled with smoke. That's terrifying. Definitely sounds like devil worship to me. And by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold. But how did you catch a cold from a fire? What a fiasco it was. The grandchildren, bless them, threw water over me as they tried to put out the flames. And then, because the whole room had filled up with smoke, of course, we had to open all the windows to clear it. The windows. The biting winter air rushed over me like the devil dancing on my grave it did. I caught a terrible cold from it. It put me in the hospital for a while. I won't forget that. Birthday in a hurry. I knew it was devil worship all along, but something like this old man's story is playing on my mind for some reason. Ah, so maybe Miss Garrett opened the windows because, to let out the smoke, right? From the fire. We need to demonstrate who, apart from Mr. Natsume, could have attacked the young woman on the street, as well as how he or she could have done it. Yes, but once again, the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudice. All of them seem convinced they're right, even in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. I think you're going to need to pit them against each other to force them to accept an alternative explanation. Yes. I don't necessarily need to find contradictions between their assertions. Just a connection might do the trick. Right, I'll see what I can do. If anything stands out, I'll go in for a strike. That's the spirit. Okay. How the victim was stabbed. The window wasn't closed though, right? You have to open the windows to clear the smoke. There we go. Those two juror statements clearly contradict one another. They do? How exactly, counsel?
Don't point at me again. I told you it wasn't me.
What's that you say? Speak up, lad, speak up. Juror number 3, do you see?
Oh, me? See what, sir?
Do you hear juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? It seems, despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows in the middle of winter.
Well, yes, of course, because it was an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from the fire, then it would be mad not to open the...
Oh! Exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there was a fire in the Garrett household, and Mr. Garrett had the following to say about it. The whole place was filled with smoke.
Oh, my hat!
Oh. Juror number 4, do you have something to say about that? Mrs. Garrett.
Oh, dearie me. What is the meaning of this? How dare you imply I am hiding who I really am?
It's imperative that you confirm something for the court. So please, it's time to drop the pretense now.
What is it?
When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window?
Oh, I beg your pardon? What are you insinuating?
The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and bookcase caught fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable that you wouldn't have opened the window.
And what if we did? Oh, all right then. Yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window, but I can't have been easy since I continued to give him a just as a book battering.
Even though your house was on fire?
Oh, you never stop throwing until the anger subsides. It would be terribly bad for the nerves to do otherwise.
Of course. I should have realized.
That's a significant step forward, Mr. Naruhodo. You managed to establish that the window was open. We simply must have that added to Mrs. Garrett's formal statement.
Now you mention it, yes. The window was open at the time. I'd clearly forgotten, but it's true.
Okay. The fourth book found at the scene of the crime shows a very obvious signs of fire damage. And the title of the book is The Lion's Pride. The same title, in fact, as the book Mr. Garrett told us that he had been reading.
Well, I really couldn't say.
On the day in question, did you or did you not throw at your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride that he had been reading?
I did. It was the first thing I could lay my hands on, so I hurled it straight at him. And now you come to mention it, yes. It was rather enjoying reading it, you're right.
Why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset?
Because I couldn't, you insolent little band. I did remember. At times like that, you pick up and throw whatever you lay your hands on, as you well know.
I really don't.
I barely noticed I was throwing a book, much less the title of it.
What is it, juror number 5? You know something. I remember what it was. The memory I'd blocked out. Ah, it was listening to what this granny was saying. Thoughts started flooding back.
Who are you calling a granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Garrett, and we're the maid. I'll have you know.
The man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's being so used to hit all the time. It was about 2 weeks ago now. I just come back from home after work like. Put my hand in my pocket for the wages I just earned that day, and I nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny had dropped out. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. Oh dear, what a disaster. You haven't the half of it, boy. Oh? The wife was cutting off some chicken at the time. I could hardly get the words out, but I told her straight. I lost today's wages, love. Next thing I knew, the blade was whistling past my ear. Struck into the wall next to me it did, about an inch deep. That's horrifying. No words, just terror. I could smell it then, you know, that god-awful stench of the flames. I was sure I was getting to end up face out in the muddy banks that night, I can tell you. No, that's a real disaster, isn't it? I'll never use the word lightly again. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. The woman lose her rag, they'll throw anything at you, knives, hatchets, hammers, you name it.
Mr. Nanohooker, you mustn't think that all women are so short-tempered and unrefined.
No, I wasn't thinking that.
Throwing household objects at people is, well, it's so uncivilized. At least attack with honor, using a bow or the like.
What? Attack? Who are you gonna attack?
Never mind. Anyway, this man's words could be rather significant, I think.
Alright, we'll come back to the bow and arrow thing later, if I dare. Your wife really threw a kitchen knife at you? That's right. She was chopping wheat with it. Had a tiny edge on it, believe me. Still, it's old memories, isn't it? It started with that smile she threw at me when we were courting. And since then, the list of things she threw at me has grown along with our relationship. There was a cup, and then a glass, and then a pot, and then a kettle, and then a chair, and a wardrobe, and a cooker, and a bathtub. Your wife must be even beefier than you. And things came to a end last week when she threw me right into the flames. Still, she's not so bad when she calmed down. She's a little sweetheart, really. I'm so happy for you. If you want to know what I think this whole idea of ladies first is that we're so obsessed with in this country was possible by some clever lads who've been tossed in the flames a few too many times by their wives. That's a very interesting theory.
What a terrible thought.
On the face of it, this first statement just sounds like a really extreme anecdote. But I think it might turn out to be an extremely powerful weapon. A weapon I may be able to use to make the jurors accept an alternative explanation here. Okay, so now we gotta tie everything together, I think. So let's see all the statements really quick. Left behind at the evidence, if there's some novel explanation about how the victim was stabbed. The window could have been open when the woman was throwing books. Definitely a possibility. Now, she mentioned the window was open at the time. Okay, forgotten, but it's true. A woman in a rage will hurl almost anything actually. The kitchen knife really brought that home to me. I wonder if we should just go over everything again. I don't know if we pressed his statement again, but let's check real quick. At the point when the victim was attacked on Briar Road, We know that there's a small house fire in the Garrett house on the opposite side of the street. Well, yes, it certainly seems that way. And on account of the smoke, I imagine that they would have had the windows wide open in spite of the cold. And on the count of smoke, I imagine that they would. We also know that Miss Garrett was throwing flaming books at her husband. Her husband, who was backed into a corner by the window due to his wife's frenzied attack. Yes, that's right. So there's definitely a chance that one of the books could have flown past the man and out the window. Only what? Only I can't really see how it could have gone all the way over to the other side of the road, that's all. Ah. So I don't really see how I can change my decision, really. Wait, he can't see how it went all the way across the road? That wasn't enough? What's it going to take to persuade these people? Oh, you know what I think? I bet she threw the knife out the window and actually hit the woman in the back, right? Just like how the book was thrown at her. Did you change your statement from before? Well, yes, it was one of my most memorable birthdays, you see. I couldn't let it go unremembered. I'm sure the defendant will be delighted that you're using this trial to explore your past. And how is it that memory related to this case exactly? Sorry, what's that? You'll have to speak up, I'm afraid. Never mind, he's as deaf as a post when he wants to be. But actually, this old man's anecdote might just be provide the alternative explanation I need to make my point to some of the other jurors. Use unlit candles on my birthday this year. It's safer that way. So the window was open when the Garretts were arguing that day. Yes, Mrs. Garrett finally admitted to it, which is a very significant victory for the defense. I feel like the fog's starting to clear and an alternative explanation to this case is starting to show itself.